Well, hello there, and welcome to the Fashion Guru podcast. I'm Bill Daly, and I am excited that you have joined us for the show today. This year is already off to a great start, and we are excited to have Brian Klimek from the great state of New York visiting with us today. Woo! Brian, say hello to everyone if you would.
Howdy, everybody. How's it going? How you doing? Great to be here.
Well, we are so happy to have you. Now, hang on a second because you are going to get to know all about Brian very shortly. He has a great story and some exciting insight about an event he attended recently that I am dying to hear about. If you are a first time listener, we want to say thank you for taking the risk and investing your time in the Fashion Guru podcast. We know your time's valuable, so we will intend to provide some great content that will help you in your fashion journey. And if you're a return listener, well, welcome back. And thank you for your loyalty, your feedback. We are especially happy to have you as well. And now back to our guest. Well, Brian Klimek is joining us today, as I said, from New York, where he and his wife and two sons and his dog Whitney call home. Brian, as I mentioned earlier, I'm so glad to have you join me on the show, and I'm anxious to hear more about you. I've read a little, and I don't want to spoil it. So maybe let's take the first section and just allow you to tell us, who are you, and then maybe tie in how you came to this sartorial journey that we're on together.
All right, I'll try and keep this brief. Brian Klimek, I live in New York. As you said, a lovely family, and I am an actuary by trade. And if you don't know what that is, look it up. I won't get into that here. But I'm in the finance world. In a nutshell, my background did involve dressing well when we had to back in the 1990s. So my interest and my wardrobe was slowly building from when I was a teenager into some early jobs and then into my career. And in essence, I became essentially what people called the best dressed actuary out there. Fast forward, even when the world went casual around Y2K, my company went relatively casual as well. I tended to maintain my own standards and kept my own image, and believe it or not, like, people in my office they just simply got used to it. So they expected me to dress this way, and if I ever came in casually, people were somewhat shocked. So it wasn't until the pandemic hit when all of a sudden we're all locked at home. So for first few months of the pandemic, I will admit I lived in pajamas most of the time. And then as we realized we didn't know when this thing was going to end, I just decided to myself, screw it. I'm getting back in my clothes and I'm just going to dress like this for work from home. I enjoy it. And it was at that time I started using Instagram as almost my own personal blog to take a snapshot of what I was wearing, record it on this media, and it was really just for me. And lo and behold, it started taking off. People were engaging. It got me more interested in it. And here we are about 4 years later, and I have 25,000 followers and relationships with menswear brands and all kinds of connections with people out there. And it's been just a wonderful ride. All right, so that's me in a nutshell.
That's so exciting. I already have questions. So you're right. This could be a 2-hour show. But you talked about when you were home in your pajamas doing your actuarial. I own a retail store, and I never closed one day during the pandemic. I just said I'm going to stay up because nobody was paying my bills for me, so I still had to go to work. And there was weeks where I didn't see anybody, but I could still get on the phone and talk and do what I needed to do. But my business is show and tell. I can't. It's not something that I can do from home. My question to you is, when you started working, let's say casually, you use the word PJs, when you were working casually versus when you dressed up again, how did that change how you felt about what you were doing, if at all? But did you feel different when you got up, dressed up, showered, and were more professional?
Oh, absolutely. Because that's essentially why I did it, because that's quote unquote my thing. There's I always tell people, like, I have a lot of math and statistics background, and I like puzzles, and the putting together an outfit, like with all the pieces and accessories to make it look outstanding, is like the daily puzzle. I enjoy it. So it's part of the reason why I went back to it. I also said, like, I have this huge closet of all these things that I've collected over the years. I mean, I have the wardrobe now that I, aspired to have when I was in my 20s. So it's like I want to wear it, I want to build it, and so yes. Long answer to your question is yes, definitely a feel good feeling getting back in the gear, and it's going to stay that way forever
Yeah.
if I
Well,
can help
I
it.
I was hoping that's what you were going to say, because part of the uh, genesis of this whole Fashion Guru podcast is about how to help guys get to the next level. And, I'm not saying people got to go run a steam shovel or dig ditches with the suit on, but if your vocation allows you to dress better, then dress better. Step up whatever level you're at, step it up one level. And for you and me, we have the opportunity to dress any way we want. I've come to a point now where if I'm not wearing, gosh, if I'm not wearing a pocket square, people notice. Nor I don't think I ever would. I'd go without underwear before I went without a pocket square. But um, people do notice, because that's your stick. And
Absolutely.
when you mentioned that, I felt different. It's almost like when you couldn't dress up, that's part of your persona. Your style isn't just what you wear, it's everything. And it's
Yeah.
almost like somebody took your balloon, and some of that joy went away. And so I'm glad to see that you got back. But our listeners need to hear stories like that, because what I realized is I went from a life of um, doing what other people do, or FOMO, fear of missing out, or what it just blending in to, man, if I look like everybody else, I got to go home and change, because I don't want to blend in. I want to stretch people's imagination. And by following you as long as I have, I know you like to do that as well. So
I mean, it's really all about doing what you like or love. And I know there are many gentlemen out there that have zero interest in putting on a tie.
yeah,
And that's fine. As I said, do what you love. But like for me, what I'm realizing, especially with the Instagram thing, is there's a lot of people out there that um, don't even realize that when you dress well, um, the potential, or the repercussions of it, and the feedback that you get. I mean, this all goes back to kind of why the whole dressing well thing triggered me when I was a kid. It was like I didn't like to dress up when I was really young, even into my teenage years. But I did hit a point where those certain events, like weddings or whatever, the reactions that people would give based upon how you were attired um, were just like joyful in a sense.
yeah,
And now I realize it today, especially like in a world that's much more casual. An example is like an airport. You hardly ever see anybody dressed well in an airport, but I'll tell you, when I decide to fly dressed up in a suit and tie, um, the compliments that I get, little perks that I get, it's really surprising
yeah,
and pretty awesome. So um,
yes.
it matters. That's is what I'm trying to say.
Well said. I mean, there is what I call that is there is an underlying command of respect for someone who dresses well, because it isn't just how they look. I think people's brains know that it took time and effort and creativity to look like that. And that's where the respect comes from. And, it used to be, I would imagine, when you were younger, that you dressed up because you liked it when people complimented you. And that's where the ego comes out a little bit. Now it's a confirmation that what you're doing is making a difference. And of course, we know today the bar is much lower than it ever used to be. So to stand out, in the words of Harvey Specter, I'm here, you're here.
Yeah.
And, it isn't to make other people look worse. It's to make other people consider, maybe I can meet them halfway and I'll be way ahead of where I was.
That's
And
a great
so,
way to put it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's just calling men of all ages to another level of fashion and style. That's part of the mainstay of the Fashion Guru podcast. And we call by attraction, not by promotion.
Right.
And there's a big difference there. So,
Right. And you also don't want it to be, you don't want it to come across egotistical, intimidating. Because, for instance, in my business, I sometimes have to interview a lot of younger people for jobs, or I end up being the manager for someone, and I don't necessarily want my attire to reflect an attitude that's overly intimidating. I'm, I'm, I, I feel I'm a nice guy. I portray that, even as a boss, and that's why people, I think, almost more cherish how I dress, and it's not an intimidating factor.
yeah,
In essence.
I 100% agree. And that's a great way to put that. And I like to think that I don't come off as arrogant or snooty or anything like that because I dress up. It changes the way that I present myself, I think.
Right.
Um, I used to never go to the drive-throughs at the bank because I would like to go inside and have a conversation with somebody. And I changed that because now I go in and they're wearing sweatshirts and jeans. And,
Oh yeah.
I have a quote on the screen that says, dress the position you want, not the position you have. And what a lot of people are doing today is dressing the position that they have, wondering why they can't get where they want. And like it or not, right or wrong, that's how people perceive you. So that's how you got to do it.
This is
That's why
true.
that's why I like your rock and roll flair when you've got dress.
That's just me being me. That's
Yeah.
all.
Oh, I agree. So, um, as far as we'll talk if we have a little time at the end. I've got a couple other questions regarding what we just talked about, but I want to take us to a trip you had in January of this year, and I want to have you explain it as thoroughly as you can, because there's lots of listeners, first of all, who have never been to Pitti Uomo, but probably just as many who don't even know what I just said. And maybe if you could explain that, because I got really jacked when I saw your pictures come up and you were there. I'm like, you lucky son of a gun. And my wife and I are going to go to Malta. It's been a pipe dream, or it's been a bucket list item for me forever. I've got a 4x8 mural on the wall of Malta. And now that I'm in the fashion business, we're going to go via Italy and go to tie it around a show like Pitti, and then go to Malta, and then I'll write the whole trip off, right?
Awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. So tell us about your trip.
So are you going in January?
No, not in January, but I'm going to go whenever we go. We'll go to Malta in January so that we
Okay.
can tie that in,
Okay, gotcha.
and not this coming January. So,
Okay, so for
never know.
for your listeners, so in a nutshell, Pitti Uomo is what I believe is what I tell people is the largest menswear trade fair on the planet. I think there are other big ones, but I think this particular event, which is held twice a year, in January and June in Florence, Italy, um, has an atmosphere and a crowd that's different than the others. I can't compare because I haven't been to other trade shows, but I know this is one, especially through being, doing the content and the influencing material on Instagram, getting to know a lot of other people who do menswear content. This is the event that people go to. So I will honestly tell you, as of a few years ago, I knew very little to nothing about Pitti Uomo. So it was really as I developed my Instagram page and got much more into the menswear content. I learned about it, and as I was telling Bill in a side conversation, a couple years ago, I joined what's called the Sartorial Club. And this is a club that was created by two women a few years ago. And it's actually tied in, it syncs a little bit with Pitti Uomo and other events in big cities worldwide, where it's really just an open, inclusive club or group. It's not very costly to join, but it's for people who are interested in fine tailored clothing, men and women. Um, I've been to a few events with them, and it was through them that I really got a flavor or a sense of this event called Pitti Uomo, and a lot of people started encouraging me to go and find out what it's about. And it really took me about a year to just do research. Is this the right thing for me? Do I want to go all the way to Italy? What is this thing? And I have a good friend who started doing the menswear content creation. He's small town dapper on Instagram. His name is Simon, and we're good friends now. And he went to Pitti Uomo last year, so he ended up being my guide and inspiration and trigger to go. And so after researching and all, it was back around August, I decided I was going to pull the trigger and go to this event. Plotted it all out. So we'll fast forward to January, and I'm heading to Italy for the first time ever. I had never been to Italy, period, let alone this type of event. What I could say, I guess, in the grand scheme of things, is I really had one of the best times of my life. And I tell people who are, especially let's say I have friends here who maybe aren't as into menswear or clothes or clothing trade fairs or whatever, and they would ask me to, like, so what did you do there? And I said, well, a lot of it is like you go to this fortezza, a fortress. Now I think there are about 1,000, 1,500 or so brands there in various buildings in this fortress. I honestly didn't like. I want to go back because I feel like I didn't have time to even go through a lot of that stuff. I tell friends that most of the time I was there, I'm ending up, I'm in the outside portion, socializing and networking, doing, photographs with people, doing photo shoots, and just in conversations with people of all different walks of life, associated with, menswear. And you, and it believe me, it filled the days. The days went like so fast that there were so many aspects of Pitti, like all the different booths and brands, just so much that I didn't get to. I didn't even really get to see Florence that much. But like I said, if you're into this sort of thing, it is just such an amazing atmosphere for it. So I'll stop there, and you can ask me anything
Yeah.
more specific, Bill.
Man, my mind's going a million miles an hour.
Yeah.
And I want to go as soon as possible for sure. My question, as you were getting ready and you talked about how you mapped it all out, was there some intimidation that was unmerited, meaning your mind told you what you supposed it was going to be like, and then when you got there, it was totally different? What was the general welcome to a newbie, so to speak, like yourself, to the event?
So I'll tell you, going there, even though I got a little bit of an education from some folks that I know that have been to it, I really honestly didn't know what to expect for myself. Um, so I did go with somewhat of an open mind. Um, and I think to answer one of the questions you just had was one of the things that I came away with that made the event awesome is the fact that I met so many different people, many of which I came upon or became friendly with or connected with via Instagram. Maybe a comment here and there, a DM here and there, maybe a little bit more of a developed relationship, but I ended up running into so many people who I've been connected with via this app in person. Many of them, like some influencers and content creators that are huge, actually knew who I was, which was incredible, mind blowing. And then another just wonderful aspect about it is, especially me. I'm not a brand. I'm not a tailor. I'm not a brand. I'm really just a content guy. I'm an enthusiast, and I always thought it is how are people there going to look at me? But I will say that everyone was like super friendly and welcoming, and there's some big content creators there that did know who I was, would actually come over and spend 15-20 minutes chatting with me, and they know everybody there, but they came over and chatted with me.
Wow.
So that's why I say the atmosphere was just incredibly awesome.
That is awesome. You know, I I think that one of the things when I started getting more involved in this industry and following people, and you and I met this way through Instagram, which is
Yeah.
pretty awesome. A lot of the people that I know are that way. Um, but what I find is when I find that they're either from London or Istanbul, Turkey, or Australia, or Portugal, or New York City, or Mexico City, or wherever they're from, we're all pretty similar. And
It's
we
true.
all, with few exceptions, I might add, we all don a fairly similar wardrobe in different styles.
Hmm.
And, you know, I talk a lot on um, uh, my podcast about if you buy and create classic pieces, it's the best investment you can make. Because
Hmm.
guess what? You don't have to go out every spring and buy a new wardrobe for the coming year,
Yep.
because you can wear what you wore the last year and the year before and the year before that. And maybe you're going to change your tie or your shirt. But when you do it right, I mean, what Clark Gable and James Bond and a lot of these other, Fred Astaire and all these guys wore decades ago are still current. They might have a little different shoulder. The lapel might have changed in or out,
Yep.
but the basics are the same. And I just love that. And my experience has been that people respond to that much more than an outrageous look, but that classic style, because it commands, there's something about being a gentleman. And it takes a lot more than just what you wear, because I've seen some dickheads wear some really nice clothes. But um, uh, it's nice to be a gentleman and then follow through on the other side of that, what that means, how you speak and your manners and what you do and how you're a connector, how you introduce people, and generally want to encourage people and all that kind of stuff. And that's one thing I'm going to add to the podcast is here is I'm going to weave in some things about lifestyle that have nothing to do with dress wear, but that everything to do with how you treat your fellow man, how you help them raise up with no thought of how it's going to benefit you. And so thank you for that. And so we have a lot to do. When you went, what is the duration of Pitti? Is it a week?
So it's in essence a week, but the way this worked is so the sartorial club hosts an event the night before it starts. So the trade fair goes from Tuesday to Friday in essence. The sartorial club hosted a masquerade ball. It was black tie, but it was really open to kind of however you wanted to be attired. So a lot of interesting outfits.
I bet.
And then the trade fair, like the meat of the trade fair is Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. But I would say on Thursday you can sense a bit of a dwindling of participation, and then it's still going on Friday. But I hear it's a ghost town, and I was actually on my way back to Rome on Friday morning, so I didn't see.
Yeah.
But I think if you're in the industry and you're going around like negotiating with brands or viewing booths, and so that's still open on Friday.
Is there, with all the booths and the vendors that are there, is there that much for you, an individual, not a company wanting to buy things for marketability?
No, not really. It's more visual, and just popping by, seeing if certain brands you like, they will engage with you, but they're not really there so much at that event for an influencer. Like they're making bigger deals.
Transactions, yeah.
Okay. But there's a few brands that like I really like Albert Thurston, who makes like suspenders and sock garters. I walked into their booth, checked out some of their new items, and they were happy to chat with me, and we did exchange business cards and all, but nothing came of that. But so it's more just walking around, seeing what brands are doing, and keep in mind that there are hundreds and hundreds of brands that are not fine menswear. You've basically got the whole gamut of men's clothing. So you got outerwear, skiing clothes. There's clothes for your pets there. So it's essentially everything.
Yeah, interesting. Did you get something for Whitney while you were there?
I did not.
Oh,
remember, they're not selling things in those booths to individuals.
Yes, understand.
It's not the purpose of that.
Two questions.
Yeah.
What was your biggest takeaway?
Oh, wow. My biggest takeaway. Good question. I'd have to say it has to go back to the fact that people were so open and welcoming, and friendly, and very into the connecting and networking and conversation, and doing photo shoots with you, and it is really the atmosphere thing was just awesome. The best way to put it.
Yeah. Does it give a new, if we were to look at it from Iowa, you're a little more because you're in the Big Apple, but where I'm at, I live in about a 350 to $400,000 or 400,000 person community. So it's not a small town, but and we don't see a lot of people dress up. We've got two haberdashers in town, and that's it, and a few box stores. I mean, we got to drive east to Chicago. But in hearing you and what my supposition about your experience is, dressing well is still alive and well worldwide. Um, and maybe I don't know if Europe got as casual as in Asia got as casual as the United States did. I don't know, but any comment on that?
uh, I mean, I'll agree with you that the world is definitely more casual these days. Um, I actually live in an area that's similar to your area. So I live north of Manhattan, um, in a suburban, a borderline rural community as well. And there's no one out and about dressed like I'm dressed, but even though I might be like this in the grocery store.
Me too.
Um, um, but I'm honestly, I would think I don't think it's ever going to die. Um, and I think what we do on social media, and how we tie it into other things, how we all inspire each other. I mean, I think what we're doing on Instagram oftentimes triggers people to in essence step it up a notch. I mean, they might think a little bit more about what they're wearing for a particular event and maybe make a statement. Or if they're going to buy a suit, maybe I'm going to go the extra mile and get a custom lining and make it like interesting or my own or different. So I don't know. It'll keep going. We'll
Yeah.
keep going, Bill. You and me.
That's yep. Hey, whatever it takes, I'll do it. A quick story. I'm a big coffee fanatic, and I was at one of our local coffee shops downtown. It's a very urban, cool vibe, and I was sitting there, doing a few things and drinking my coffee and getting ready for my morning. And a guy he just kept looking at me, he kept staring at me, and he was waiting for his stuff to get done. I'm sitting on a couch and he went up and got his stuff. And then when he came over, he walked in and he goes, "I am so sorry. I know you could tell I was staring at you, but I can't stop." He said, "I love your outfit." He goes, "Are you going to a wedding or something?" And I said, "No, I'm just going to work. Just going to work." And he couldn't believe it. He goes, "You're dressed to the night." I was wearing a boutonniere that day. I had some other things, and he says, your cufflinks, I couldn't quit looking at them. Does that say 007?" I said, "It sure
Yeah.
does."
Oh, nice.
you
Nice.
know, and little things like that. And uh, it's that inspires me to know. He didn't come over and say, "Why do you got to dress like that?" He was taken back, literally. And so um, we just need to do more of that. And eventually if we tried to explain how we dress to somebody by text or on the telephone, they would never get that that's what this looks like,
Right.
because it's different. People think they have to dress up, they have to throw on their one suit to go to a family wedding or to go to church, or they don't even do that at church anymore. But it's I think it's giving people permission to at least explore the idea, and that's what this podcast is all about. And you've hit so many points out of the park, and I appreciate that. I appreciate
As I said in the beginning, to each his own, and do what you like, do what you love.
That's right. That's right. Well, I could go on for a long time, but I don't know about my fellow sartorialists, but I have had a blast. I really have, and it's not enough time. Usually, we honestly do 30 to 40 minutes, and we're going to be pushing the hour mark, and I'm all about it. We can come back and do it again if you're willing.
All
Um,
good.
but after the podcast, people are going to be able to go to our landing page and find all of your information. But I presume the best way to see you and your posts is Instagram, correct? Can you just tell everybody what your Instagram handle is?
So my handle is suit tie links braces man.
You know what's really
It
funny?
says it all.
Did I tell? I thought your name was Sooty Links Braceman. for a long time because that's what it looked like. I never broke it apart in pieces. So that's how I remember it, but that's exactly what it is. So suit and tie links braceman.
I mean, when I developed it, I mean, I really wanted to be associated with suit and tie,
Yep.
and I always wear braces to hold up my pants, and I always wear cufflinks on my cuffs.
Yep.
So it's like that's what makes my outfits.
Well, one of the reasons I want to encourage people to go to Brian's website or on Instagram is to click on his website, because he's also got a lot of affiliates that he had connected to that you can get clothing and shoes and accessories and pocket
Tons of
squares,
discounts.
socks,
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
And that's a good one-stop shop to at least get yourself started. So as we wrap up this episode of the Fashion Guru podcast, I want to remind you of a few things. The main focus of the Fashion Guru podcast is to call men of all ages to a higher level of how to dress well in the world by providing new insights, ideas, and examples of how to do just that. We also showcase endless resources from around the world to help you create the perfect look and develop your own personal style. The second focus is to celebrate all of my friends like Brian and trusted colleagues in their fashion related businesses as well. Our job is to connect you folks to folks who can steer you in the right direction, create a plan, and provide the products and services you need to make your sartorial dreams come true. I often say I would much rather do business with a trusted advisor than a complete stranger. And hopefully, this podcast is a great resource for that. Now that you know and trust Brian Klimek, you can reach out to him and join him and ask questions that you may have through direct message on Instagram. I learned many years ago that you have to give it away to keep it. So anything we can do to support you, the listener, and the professionals we surround ourselves with, we are all in. We've come to the end of our time together, and though it's too soon, there is another episode just around the corner. Make sure you follow me on Instagram at Bill Daily Fashion Guru, and like and follow our podcast, mine and Brian's, as well. If you want to join our email list, you can send me a note at Men's Style Guru BD. Also, please follow me on Instagram and DM me there. All of the details of the show will be listed on our landing page that you'll find on Spotify. You'll find on Amazon Music, Apple Music, and iHeartRadio as well if you missed any of the information. Let's meet here again soon. The Fashion Guru podcast is recorded in Bettendorf, Iowa in the USA. We are produced by Blue House Socials and underwritten by Second Chance Productions. Please don't forget that life is too short to wear boring clothes, so dress it up, everyone. Until next time, we're out.